My dearest indie warriors, I have a confession to make. Traditional quote-unquote cozy games don't work for me. I can play them, I can plant the crops and craft the thingamajigs and take in the bright, colorful visuals as much as anybody, but I don't find these gameplay loops focused on light, casual, repetitive busy work to be relaxing. In fact, I find them bafflingly stressful in ways no amount of therapy can properly unearth. Back in 2020, when the pandemic first hit and Animal Crossing was the hot new thing for Switch owners locked indoors, it was nice to spend some time in it, I guess, but I was more concerned about being deeply indebted to that capitalist tanuki than I was about taking in the sunshine and making sure my tiny little house had the perfect feng shui. Each in-game day had me hustling around as fast as possible trying to harvest all the produce, dig up all the things, and be an efficient little member of the working class. In short, if the point of the game was to chill and take in the vibes, then my failure to do so was nothing short of spectacular. Today's list is about a different type of cozy. It's about games that forego the busy work and crafting recipes and crops to harvest in favor of immersing you in a charming world or putting you in a meditative flow state. Games that have gentle, unpressured goals that leave you feeling calm and collected but still present and engaged. Now, before I start to sound too much like a suburban Pilates instructor, let's get into it. But not before a very brief request. If you do like this video and enjoy our indie gaming content, please consider liking and subscribing, as well as checking out our Patreon if you want to help support the channel and get some great perks in the process. Now for real, on to the games. My first pick for this list may be fairly short but remains some of the most potent digital comfort food I have ever consumed. The Frog Detective Trilogy is a collection of 3 episodic games, each little more than an hour long, where you play as an investigating amphibian off to sleuth out some surprisingly wholesome mysteries. And as all who've played it know, this wholesomeness permeates throughout the entire experience like a warm hug with, perhaps, some tickling involved. Each entry will place you in a tiny open world where you'll chat with quirky, uniformly hilarious characters that all have something silly to say and might require an item of some sort to progress the story. Collecting each character's necessary item will advance the plot with nothing in the way of real difficulty presented here. Just a bunch of silly characters to chat with, a charmingly crafted set of worlds to explore, and the overall philosophy that whatever goes wrong in this world is less about malice and more about goofy misunderstandings. If only the real world functioned that way. I want to live in the ridiculous world of Frog Detective, but until we have the technology, replaying it will have to do. My second pick still has some work to be done as an early access title, yet sits at an overwhelmingly positive user rating on Steam, and for good reason. Driftwood has you playing as a longboarding sloth named Eddie. After a basic tutorial lasting barely a minute, you'll send Eddie gliding gently down long expanses of winding open roads, hearing the passing breeze accompanied by a great licensed soundtrack, one that's an exact match for the game's mellow vibes. Gameplay here isn't exactly trivial, as you totally can wipe out, and control of your longboard may take some getting used to, especially at high speeds. But with a few levels under my belt, I was gliding my way downhill like the chill little speed slother I've always strived to be, and maybe speed slothing isn't actually a real sport. I'm not enough of a sportser to know, but I think we can all agree that it should be. Onde, a game whose name I can only hope I'm pronouncing correctly, is next on the list as a game its developers describe as a sound surfing platformer. Ride from one sound wave to another in this vibrantly colorful experience with the aesthetics of an abstract painting and a soundtrack that evokes a professional spa if you were being massaged by Enya herself. There's just no overselling how serene and entrancing this experience is, where almost every level feels like screenshot bait. The artistry here is nothing short of astounding, and those looking for a game to chill out to probably won't find a whole lot better. I'm trying to avoid covering certain games that would be an extremely good fit for this list, like Journey and Abzu and Spiritfarer, just because they're so overwhelmingly popular already that you probably would have heard of or played them. But the same may not hold for Omno, a game with some DNA from Journey while having a bit more to it on the gameplay and traversal front. A product of a single developer, Omno has you journeying, pun fully intended, through softly colored, low-poly worlds with some gentle platforming and deeply satisfying hoverboard traversal. Nothing about it will give your brain or reflexes much of a workout, but at the same time, it continuously one-ups itself when it comes to visual wonder or interesting ways to get around and craft simple but engaging puzzles. It was one of my favorite games of the year when it released in 2021, and I hope with all my heart that more people will give it a chance. Next up is URBO, a minimalistic puzzle game that seems like a city builder on the surface, but in reality it's closer to a mix of a match 3 puzzler and something like 2048. a game that I'm disgusted to say released over 10 years ago, a fact that's done little more than remind me about the disturbingly quick passage of time. Existential crises aside though, URBO will have you combining similarly styled buildings into larger ones on a small grid, and doing so continuously to see just how large of a city you can make. While the gameplay itself is far from stressful, the tranquil atmosphere and charming music only adds to the meditative feel, which is enhanced further by your ability to pick whichever environment and time of day you want to play in. As a bonus, URBO is fantastically robust on a technical level, with bells and whistles like Steam Deck support, perfect ultra-wide scaling, and even an optional VR mode for those who want to really get immersed. I can't pretend I expect every developer to go to such lengths, but it certainly deserves appreciation here. Next we'll get closer to a real city builder, albeit not so close as to introduce any sort of real stress or difficulty. Minami Lane is a small but beautifully charming management sim, where you'll create a street full of residences and businesses to allow your villagers to thrive. Villagers will give feedback on the price of noodle bowls or lack of parks in the area, and you'll have to react accordingly if you want to gain more money to expand and decorate to your heart's content, as well as fulfill any goals necessary to complete each level. Between customizable buildings, a pleasantly bubbly aesthetic, and, of course, cats, I suspect many folks will find a lot to love here, even if the game only takes a few hours to get through. Speaking of cats, a lot of people who've come across my next pick, Cats in Time, may have actually dismissed it for how simple it looks. If I'm being real with you though, and I'm always being real with you, never let anybody tell you otherwise, I almost skipped over it too. Cats are cool, I am more of a dog person though, no disrespect, but an entire game that's little more than finding cats hidden in cute little dioramas, well, it sounded a little boring. Cue me booting up the game before bed almost every single night for weeks to casually cat-click in cute and often surprisingly clever ways. Each of Cats in Time's numerous levels will harbor a handful of concealed kitties to find. Some will be in fairly plain sight as long as you're up for a bit of Where's Waldoing, and others will be hidden behind elaborately designed switches, key codes, and interactable scenery. What threw me off, in a good way, was just how engaging it all is despite being pretty easy, because not only are the levels designed well, but they're bright, cheery, and have a stunning level of visual variety that I never got bored of. While I get that hidden object games may not be everybody's bag, you might be surprised with this one. Now it's time for something completely different. Making this list is actually what convinced me to give Valley Peaks a shot, as I bought it at release with the totally sincere intention to play it one day. Don't we all know how that goes? But since I picked it up, my undying adoration for it has made it hard to put down. Valley Peaks is a mountain climbing game with cozy vibes all around, from the lovable frog characters you interact with to the puzzle-like mountains you'll be climbing, each with different paths that have various levels of difficulty. It's a casual twist on a short hike meets Jusant, and I'm overwhelmingly here for it. Valley Peaks takes on an open world format, but one that works magnificently because of how small and dense this world is. It contains 11 mountains, each with 3 paths to climb up that vary in difficulty. Complete all 3 to fill out that mountain's stamp book and trade it in for a gadget that will help you on your journey, like binoculars to plan your next climb, or even a glider to coast down from above the clouds. Ironically, despite the cuteness that permeates into every crevice of Valley Peaks' design, this game has the closest thing on this list resembling difficulty. But everything is introduced gently, there's not a strong punishment for failing since there's no fall damage, and the gadgets you get from filling out stamp books can be really helpful to cheese some of the more daunting challenges in it. I'm tempted to say that from the few hours I played, Valley Peaks is already one of my favorite games of 2024, so unless you have some bizarre vendetta against chill froggy vibes, give this unique climbing game a chance. Next on the list, there are multiple games here that had me staying up late at night in bed on my Steam Deck after winding down from a long day, but none quite so consistently enjoyable as Harmony's Odyssey. Its initial impression is a little overwhelming, with menus and visuals exploding with color in ways my eyes didn't seem equipped to process at first. In fact, I literally turned down the brightness on my Steam Deck to almost nothing most of the time. But the visuals here are absolutely lovely and bring the game's otherwise fairly simple puzzles to vibrant life. While some levels deviate from this formula in ways I won't spoil, Harmony's Odyssey is ostensibly a prettied up jigsaw puzzler if the pieces of the puzzle were parts of a 3-dimensional and sometimes quite animated board. Clicking 2 pieces together correctly will lock them into place and allow you to drag them around the board as one. Connect more and more pieces together to finish the level. This gameplay loop would have been enough to carry the campaign, but it's the finishing touches that make Harmony's Odyssey extra special. In addition to the aforementioned levels that add some variety to the jigsaw puzzling proceedings, just the simple act of snapping 2 pieces of a board together may have the characters on them interacting in some unexpected way, or unlock an otherwise surprising animation that helps bring some liveliness to the whole thing. I never expected to enjoy Harmony's Odyssey as much as I did, and the sheer level of calm satisfaction I got from completing a level was something to savor. While the rest of this list was in no particular order, I have no qualms saying I very literally saved the best for last. I have equally few qualms about admitting that Exo One is an extremely specific game creating an extremely specific experience, but if it manages to strike your particular wavelength, the game delivers the purest nirvana of flow states. While the brief snippets of borderline incomprehensible plot don't do much but add to the mood, Exo One finds its niche by matching the atmospheric qualities of Journey or Abzu, but pairing them with Tiny Wings-esque movement mechanics that feel spectacular to perfect. Navigating your metallic orb through each world by changing its gravity and shape to take advantage of your momentum is immensely satisfying. And though I am comparing it to other better-known games, Exo One's atmosphere is unique in the way it's set on impossibly distant planets filled with stunningly conceived abstract landscapes. You'll glide through distant oceans, roll along abandoned alien architecture covered by gently rolling clouds, and launch yourself off mountain slopes and into a thunderstorm. It's awe-inspiring in an existentially poignant sort of way, and practically demands that you bask in the enormity of the worlds it's set in. Exo One aims for a vibe that's the intersection of feeling completely lost and completely at peace with that, and absolutely nails it. Enough said. And so we conclude with 10 relaxing games that totally aren't farming sims. I hope you found something new to chill you out after a hard day. I know we all need some of that. If you tried and loved any of these games, let me know in the comments below. And if there's a relaxing game not on this list that you love or think is worth a mention, throw that in there too. The more the merrier. Thanks for watching, Indie Warriors, and keep it on I Dream of Indie Games for the high quality and honest indie gaming coverage you've come to expect.